This is Stuart Goes to School by Sarah Pennypacker. I'm going to be reading pages 32 through 40 in this video. Stuart poked his head out the other side of the tunnel. The room beyond was loud and full of teachers. A bunch of them were watching cartoons on television. A few were reading comic books on the floor with their feet on the walls. 2 of them were jumping on a couch, making faces at each other. Giant boxes of donuts were scattered all around, and everybody was chomping gum or puffing cigars like crazy. Signs all over the room read, "No kids allowed." Wow, thought Stuart. So this is the teacher's room. One teacher stuffed 3 donuts into his mouth all at once, then stuck out his tongue. The others laughed and clapped him on the back. A teacher next to him made a rude noise. The others laughed and clapped her on the back, too. Just then, the door opened and Mrs. Spindles ran in. Someone hit her with a spitball. Mrs. Spindles hurled a donut back. "I can't play," she said. "One of my students got locked in the boys' room. Mrs. Spindles picked up a phone and dialed. "Hello, hello," she cried. "Code 3 at Punbury Elementary. Send the firemen right away." Then she ran out of the room. Stuart gulped in horror. He had to get back to the classroom right now. But how? He couldn't just walk through the door or jump out a window. There was only one thing that might work. Before he could worry about everything that might go wrong, he dropped to the floor. He reached behind him and peeled off the hole. Then he crawled to the nearest wall, slapped the hole against it, and made his escape into the hall. Back in room 3B, Mrs. Spindles was nowhere to be seen. Stuart knew this was his big chance to turn all his bad luck into good. He climbed onto her desk. "I have something to show for our big interesting world," he announced. "Something you have never seen before." Stuart led the kids down the hall. One by one, he showed them the hole into the teacher's room. One by one, they bent down and looked through it. He could hardly wait to see their reactions. And then, one by one, they stood up and stared at Stuart as though he were crazy. Stuart bent down and looked into the teacher's room. It was dark and totally empty inside, just the way he suddenly felt when he realized everyone had left him there alone. Stuart walked back to 3B as slowly as a person could walk without actually standing still. At this rate, he hoped the other kids might be in 4th grade by the time he got there. On the way, he passed an exit. He stopped to poke his head out the door, wishing he could just run away. There in the parking lot were all the teachers. They were watching a crew of firemen putting away their ladders. The chief was talking to Mrs. Spindles. "The darndest thing! There was no one in the boys' room at all. But it's a good thing you called. We found 2 more of the Punbury holes." Another fireman joined them. "Yep, one in the boys' room, one in the teacher's room. Right through the walls. Whoever did this is probably a dangerous criminal." Stuart ran outside. He didn't want someone else to be blamed for what he did. "Wait," he cried. "I made the holes." Everyone turned to stare at Stuart. A man stepped forward. "I am the principal," he said. "You have obviously just had a very bad shock. In fact, we all have. So we are going to dismiss school early today." "But really, it's because of my cape," Stuart tried again. "The principal is right, Stuart," said Mrs. Spindles. "You'll feel much better tomorrow. You might as well go home now." Stuart decided to walk so he wouldn't have to face the other kids on the bus. With every step, his cape seemed to grow heavier and heavier until he could hardly drag himself along. He sat down to rest outside Stanley the trash collector's barn, and his cape hung around him like a frown. "Hi, Stuart," said Stanley. "You look as sad as yesterday's trash." Stuart told him about his day. "I think my cape isn't working anymore. I think it's making me unlucky. Maybe I should just throw it away." "People throw stuff away too quickly," Stanley said. "You've got to give it a chance." "I guess I could try wearing it one more day," Stuart sighed. After all, things couldn't possibly get any worse.